Hello, Shelley from Spin Cushions here. Today I'm going to show you how to make this square called Java from my Siren's Atlas collection. It's a pretty easy one, just trebles UK, doubles US mostly, except for the last round. So I'm going to make mine in one colour. If you'd like to change colours, I'll let you know if you need to do anything different at the start of each round. At the end of each round, I'm sorry. Now I'm going to start with a magic circle. You can use whichever method you like to start with. Okay, and the first round is exactly like for a granny square. So I'm going to chain 3 starting chain or a false stitch. Which I will get eventually. Then 2 trebles, UK doubles US. So that's one group of 3 stitches, then we're going to chain 2 and 3 stitches. I'm just going to say stitches for the rest of this video because they're all the same. Trebles UK, doubles US. Chain 2, and I'll do 2 more lots and show you what to do next. Okay, I have my 4 lots of 3 stitches. If you are going to change colours, chain 2, join with a slip stitch to your first stitch, your third chain of your starting chain or your false stitch. I'm not changing colours, so I'm going to chain 1, and if you haven't done my method before of ending rounds, then pop a scrap of yarn in there will really help you figure it all out. And I'm going to join with a double crochet UK, single crochet US instead of a slip stitch. Okay, so what that does, that little stitch takes the place of the second chain and it puts us as if we're in the middle of the 2 chain space. We're right in the middle of the corner, which is where we need to be to start the next round. No slip stitching to where you need to be. Okay, so now we're going to chain 3 starting chain or a false stitch. Then we are going to chain 1, skip 1 stitch, and in this middle stitch we're going to do a stitch, chain 2, and a stitch. Then we're going to chain 1, and in the corner we're going to do the same again, a stitch, chain 2, a stitch. So we're doing that combination all the way around. It's just on the sides we've got 1 chain in between when we do it. So I will do that all the way around and show you what's next. Okay, I've done all of my repeats, including my chain 1. Now I just need to do a stitch in the same place as our first stitches, which is where this stitch marker comes into place. It's just in that big hole there. And again, chain 2, join with a slip stitch if you're changing colours. If you're not changing colours, we'll do the same again. Chain 1, you can move that stitch marker up if you like, if you want to continue using it. Join with a slip stitch to your first stitch, whether that's a false one or the third chain of your starting chain. So we're joining with a double crochet UK, single crochet US. There we go, round 2 done. Okay, round 3. Chain 3 starting chain or a false stitch, chain 1, skip 1 stitch and do a stitch in the 1 chain space. Chain 1, skip 1 stitch, I'm going to do 5 stitches in this 2 chain space. 1, 2, oops, 3, 4, 5, chain 1, skip a stitch, stitch in the 1 chain space, chain 1, skip the next stitch, and in the corner 2 chain space we'll do 1 stitch, chain 2, 1 stitch. Oops. Stitch, chain 2 and a stitch. So that's our corner and that's our side. I'll do that all the way around and show you what's next. Alright, all my repeats are done. Just need to do a stitch in the same place as our first stitch, which is where that stitch marker is. Chain 2, join with a slip stitch if you're changing colours. If not, chain 1, use the stitch marker if you want. I'm not going to anymore. Join with double crochet UK, single crochet US to your first stitch. Alright, round 4. Chain 3 starting chain or a false stitch, Then 2 times we're going to do this little repeat, chain 1, skip a stitch, stitch in the 1 chain space. That's 1, chain 1, skip a stitch, stitch in the 1 chain space. Then we are going to do a stitch in the next 2 stitches. Oops. 1, 2. Now in the next stitch, which is the middle one of the 5 group, we're going to do 2 stitches in that same stitch. That's 1, 2. Then we're going to do a stitch in the next 2 stitches. 1, 2. Then 2 times we do this little repeat, stitch in the 1 chain space, chain 1, skip a stitch, stitch in the 1 chain space. Chain 1, skip 1, and we're up to our corner, which is the same again, 1 stitch, chain 2, 1 stitch. Oops. Okay, so our corner is the same, and that is our side. I'll do that all the way around and show you what's next. Alright, repeats are done. Just need to do a stitch in the same place as my first stitch. Chain 2, join with a slip stitch if you're finishing this colour, or chain 1, join with a double crochet UK, single crochet US if you're not. Next round is fairly similar. Chain 3, starting chain or a false stitch. 2 times we do the little repeat, chain 1, skip 1, stitch in the 1 chain space. 1, 2. Now we just do a stitch in the next 8 stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Then 2 times the little repeat, stitch in the 1 chain space. Oops. Chain 1, skip 1, stitch in the 1 chain space, chain 1, skip 1, and we're up to our corner, which is the same again. Stitch, chain 2, and a stitch. So same corner, and the sides fairly similar. I'll do that all the way around and show you what's next. Okay, all the way around, I've done my last chain 1, skip 1 stitch. Just need to do a stitch in the same place as our first one. Chain 2, join with a slip stitch if you're changing colours. If you're not, chain 1, join with a double crochet UK, single crochet US to your false stitch. Alright, almost done. So this round we're going to start squaring off. I'm going to chain 3, starting chain. 2 times the same little repeat we've been doing. Chain 1, skip 1, stitch in the next stitch. That's 1, 2. Now we're going to do a treble UK WS in the next stitch, a half treble UK half WS in the next stitch, then a double crochet UK single crochet US in the next 6 stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Then a half treble UK, half WS, then a treble UK, a WS, then 2 times the mini repeat, stitch, whoops, stitch in the next stitch, chain 1, skip 1, stitch in the next stitch, chain 1, skip 1, and we're up to our corner. 1 stitch, chain 2, 1 stitch. That's it. So same corner. Side starting to get a bit square. I'll do that all the way around and show you what's next. Alright, repeats are done. I just need to do a stitch in the same place as the first stitch. Same as before, chain 2, join with a slip stitch if you're changing colours. If you're not, chain 1, join with a double crochet UK, single crochet US. Alright, now the last round is all double crochets UK, single crochets US. The first one is over the joining stitch, which is in this hole here. Then we're going to do 1 stitch in every stitch and 1 stitch in every 1 chain space basically, and the corners are 1 stitch, chain 2, 1 stitch. So it's like mini repeat of stitch in the stitch, stitch in the 1 chain space by 2, then a stitch in the next 12 stitches, and I'm sure you get the idea. I will do that all the way around and I will show you what it looks like at the end. Okay, so I've been all the way around. I just need to do a stitch in the same place as the first stitch. And this time, no matter what you're doing, you are going to chain 2, join with a slip stitch to that first stitch. Snip off your yarn, tie it off and weave in your ends. So there you have it. Now, this is Java. It's pretty much the same size. This one isn't blocked. This one is, so it's a little bit larger in the Bendigo Woolen Mills cotton compared to the Cascade Ultra Pima cotton. If you want to change the size of this one, you could actually do the last round like I did with this one. I did the last round all trebles UK, doubles US, or you could do half trebles UK, half doubles US, or just add another round like the same as the last one of double crochets or single crochets. It's up to you. So quite an easy one. I hope you've enjoyed making Java. And make sure you check out spincushions.com for some more crochet fun. Thanks. Bye.